Voyage.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
It was just, I've never experienced anything like it.
It went over the top. It was really, really crazy.
This was set up for an event. There was no doubt about it.
My husband got on I don't think I've ever seen him so uncontrollable, having this fit of laughter.
Because everything was
It was such a cliche.
We did attend a ceremony, which it was the greatest uncontrollable laugh of my life. I know that there were people whom I was really angering because I couldn't stop laughing.
What everyone is talking about here is Dan and Lynn's wedding in Las Vegas. In the moment, many of the attendees processed it as a farcical series of events, almost a slapstick comedy. In hindsight, it may have been a warning of the severity of Dan's addictive personality. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20, and it was in Las Vegas.
Decided to have a wedding in Las Vegas, just get a quick marriage because her mother, quote unquote, just wants to die in peace knowing that you're settled, okay? Let's get married, and that was that. So she plans a wedding in Las Vegas. I mean, she asks me to be her maid of honor. She invites about 25 or so people at this wedding. And I think the reason they got married in Vegas was Dan, her husband-to-be, had been at a conference. So he was there for like a week, or maybe even longer than a week. So when we showed up, he was just like, he'd just been drinking, like just raging in Las Vegas for all this time. And he just was like a wasteland. He'd been golfing. Everybody was drunk playing golf with him. One guy came back from the golf, walked through the whole lobby with his cleats on all the way up to his room, crashed on his bed in his golf cleats. It was just ridiculous.
It started off, I believe, and I believe we stayed at the Venetian, if I'm not mistaken.
That's Rick Peltz. His wife Cheryl was one of Lynn's best friends. And he's right, it did take place at the Venetian, at least if this audio from the wedding video is any indication.
Yeah, I could just see, a Medici like yourself, here in Venice.
That's Hank Scheinberg, Becky Scheinberg's husband. Becky is one of the Duff sisters, friends of Lynn's. He's talking to Mark Hotz, who is Marilyn's ex-husband and who filmed the wedding video. We'll hear from Mark later in the podcast. For now, here's Rick Peltz on his memories of the days leading up to the wedding.
We got in there, I think it was Thursday night. We start off Friday morning. He didn't have a bachelor party, so we had like 4 guys. We went golf, and I was on the cart with Dan. It was nonstop drinking on that golf course. He was pounding, and all of us were pounding. It was hot. He said, "This is my bachelor party, let's have a good time and everything." And And we played golf, and it was not the best golf we ever played, but we did have a good time. And I remember walking through the casino. I've got the golf clubs on my back, and I, had a lot of cocktails that day, and get up to the room, and Cheryl looked at me, and I literally dropped the clubs and went right down on the table or right on the bed. And she goes, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Well, you should see Dan." I said, I'm in a lot better shape than Dan. And she goes, "Okay, you got an hour." And I said, "Hour's all I need." And took a little nap for an hour, got up, showered, put my suit on, and I was fine. And then when we went down to obviously the wedding, that was a whole nother set of events. But starting up to that, I mean, I can only say Dan was primed. There was no doubt about it. He was drinking all day.
Something that occurred to me as I kept talking to men who were husbands of Lynn's friends and socially paired off with Dan is the lack of a strong friend figure of his. No one I spoke to said, "Oh, you have to talk to so-and-so. He was Dan's best friend." I got the impression Dan may have been more of a solitary kind of person.
I don't think Dan was socially inept, but I never got a sense that, we were going to get together and meet a bunch of Dan's friends coming in. It was always we were getting together, and, Lynn and Cheryl's friends were always part of that. So kind of like a lone wolf. Dan could be fun. He could be a real nice person to be around. And then you got the Jekyll and Hyde. There's the other side of it, which I didn't see as much as I'm sure she did.
This is important to note too. Clearly Dan had charm, had an affable element of his personality. People liked him. Hank Scheinberg liked him.
It's good company. He was a good sportsman out there on the golf course, where there's always a lot of, give and take, going back and forth, kidding each other and one thing or another. And Dan was really wonderful company. I liked him.
The duality here may have been hinted at in a curious moment from the wedding video. Mark points the camera at a man who seemed to be possibly Dan's best man, but whom we haven't been able to identify.
Dan says he loves you.
Yeah, I know that, but it's time for him to grow up.
As the wedding day goes on, there's a sense of chaos in the wedding video. At one point, several people discuss the difficulty of securing a limo.
The limo driver. You can't make it.
Can't make it.
Why did you just talk
The limo driver.
Why don't we just get a limo from the hotel? Listen, 100 limo sign from God. He said, she said he can't make it.
I think you should get married upstairs in our suite.
Well, we all go to this chapel. It's like one of these chapels, drive-through chapels, and then you can go inside, and they've got this church.
I got to look at a photo of the menu of this wedding chapel. And I don't mean menu as my own description. It literally says drive up wedding menu with a light up sign like you might see at a drive-through fast food place. And the different wedding events are described as food courses. The appetizer was a wedding music ceremony for $25. Dinner was the wedding music ceremony plus a rose presentation, commemorative photo, 2 t-shirts, a novelty license plate, a certificate holder, a just married car kit, and a newlywed sign.
I think Lynn wanted a much more grandiose, much more intimate, beautiful wedding. And here at the end, we could have bought coffee mugs with their pictures on it, and people were driving through and getting married, Elvis outfits. And I mean, it was just like, this is not someone's, idea of a beautiful private wedding.
The menu ends with dessert, described as kisses, hugs, and congratulations. That was at no extra charge. The cheerfulness of this drive-up wedding menu was not matched by the mood between the bride and the groom-to-be.
Needless to say, it was just, Lynn was not happy with Dan. Dan was trying to make sense, but he was obviously still under the influence. I mean, there were backroom conversations that I heard were going on that the whole thing was off, and then it was on, and then I heard that, it's moving forward.
He just was like wasted. We got into a stretch limo. He was obnoxious all the way there because he's drunk. He's about to get married while he's already drunk. She doesn't like it. They start to fight in the car. He says, well, then let's forget it. She wouldn't get out of the car. I said, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. I don't even know if I want to marry him. It went real bad, real fast. And she's been drinking, but not to the excess. I mean, we've all been drinking. We probably had like champagne while she was getting ready, in her dress kind of drinking, not obliterated. But he was obvious. His eyes were completely red. He looked like demonic. He looked like somebody who'd been drinking solid for 10 days. This is parked in the parking lot of the chapel. Everybody is inside waiting, and I'm like, well, what do you guys want to do? I don't know. I right now I can't stand him, and he's like, I can't stand you either. That kind of just dialogue back and forth. This was my first experience being in a wedding. And the joke, in that evening, the judge said, I had no idea it was so hard. They were fighting, but I was letting them, I was trying to mediate in some way. Like, you tell me, what do you want to do? You want to call this off? I don't know if I want to call it off. Well, tell me what to do. We're sitting out here. We're supposed to be inside. Get out of the car. Anyway. I regret, believe me, I wish I had said, tossed him out and took off. We never should have done it. I even, inside, when I was helping her get dressed, I said, look, what is this about? If you don't want to marry him, don't marry him. She goes, I have to. My mother, I have to do this for my mother. I said, well, then do it, and I'll help you get out of it. We'll get you out of it then.
This notion of Lynn marrying Dan because of pressure from her mother comes up repeatedly from people we spoke to.
She was trying to back out. And her mother, she just found out her mother was dying of cancer. And her mother said to her, how can I die now I could die knowing you're going to be taken care of. And she said to Marilyn, how could I do that? I can't do this. My mom, this is the one last dying wish that she had, is that I was marrying the right guy, and she could die knowing that Lynn was taken care of.
But in the totality of this story, it can't possibly be the entire reason. Lynn had already married once before and gotten a divorce once before. And you'll see as we continue that her loyalty to Dan lingers past any possible sense of familial pressure. And maybe that is because Dan did have this positive side of his personality, as we've heard in this episode. At that moment, though, Marilyn, having no way to know what was to come, could only try and be a friend as best as anyone could in that situation.
Well, I hate to think that I made them get married. I don't think I did. I was trying to be as helpful as I could. I think they would have gotten married anyway, because at this point, without all the destruction that happens later in their lives, I mean, this was kind of like comical. He's just drunk and he doesn't, he was just obnoxious. And she was like, ugh, this guy, look at the way he's behaving, and this is my wedding day. And he's, it was more like that. It wasn't that he was a horrible guy. He was just, drank too much.
This is an essential part of the story here. We've all seen movies like The Hangover and heard the expression, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This was a Vegas wedding. Wasn't this part of the deal? It would have been easy to justify it that way. And it seemed like most of the attendees at the time did.
I'm in the back room where you're signing papers with them, and they're still bickering through the whole thing. I'm trying to see if, we can get some kind of order here so we can get this done, because she's now said, I have to do this. I have to marry him, just to at least to give my mother peace. So she has a little room kind of at the top of a circular staircase where we're going to change and everything, but we're spending all this time in like the registration room.
Marilyn was not the only attendee of the wedding who had this sort of interaction with Lynn prior to the ceremony.
Lynn was in tears in the room waiting to come out to get married. And we were all waiting. And I finally went into the room and I said, what is wrong? And she said, he's just so drunk and this, that. And I'm like, Lynn, are you sure you want to do this? Is this? And she's like, yes, no, we're doing it. And they got married.
While Lynn was not yet walking down the aisle, the groom was showing his charming side to the guests.
Oh, look at this girl. Look at this pretty girl. Oh, good to see you. Oh, she's got the mic on. Oh, yeah. Careful what you say.
There was some confusion about the rings.
I need her ring.
Who has her ring? She probably does.
Right. Where's the ring?
Oh, right. Oh, okay. You need to put that on your finger.
On my finger?
Eventually, Lynn enters. It's difficult to describe the look on her face as she walks down the aisle.
If you're not happy, we'll take care of it. I'll help you get it annulled, so you don't have to be divorced.
Right.
And so that was setting the tone of the wedding that none of us knew, because we were all laughing about how silly it all was. So when Lynn was coming down the aisle, she was laughing and crying at the same time. And I don't know, it's just so awful. We all feel like, why? Why were we laughing with her? We should have all just stopped the whole thing and said,
Let's go. Get out of here.
this is not right.
But we didn't do it the first time either. It was like you knew she had to go through this. We certainly didn't expect it to go end like it did.
No.
You know, we just thought, okay, well, he's just a normal guy. If they don't make it, they get divorced.
Yeah.
And I do reiterate that, look, whatever it takes, if you need to get out of this, I'm here for you. You know, if you want to just go through this, we'll get it annulled next week or a month from now or whatever happens. But I know her mother was really on her deathbed. So when she comes down the stairs, and you'll see this in the video, she takes one look at him who's drunk up there with these red eyeballs, and she starts to cry. She comes down smiling, but she sees him and starts to cry because it's not at all what she would have hoped it to be. You know, they've been arguing now for over an hour, and now she's going to marry this guy who's standing there swaying with these red eyeballs. And anyway, they go through this little ceremony.
So Lynn walks down the aisle in this way that you've heard her described, somewhere between crying and laughing. And someone says, as if to call out the elephant in the room, if you couldn't make out the words, that's a wedding guest telling Lynn, "You sure look happy," followed by everyone breaking out in laughter.
She doesn't want to be embarrassed that she's, been crying. She's trying to pass off she's crying because it's so emotional.
And the officiant was right out of central casting. The guy, he was flowing robes. It was just, it was a perfect setup.
We are assembled here this evening on the 12th day of April 2003, this very special time in your life, to celebrate the joining of Daniel H. and Lynn into the bonds and unity of marriage. And this is a time that you will never forget.
The officiant says, "This is a time that you will never forget." He's not saying it as a joke, but it lands in the room like a laugh line. When I watched the wedding video, this was the first time I really understood what the attendees had said. Imagine yourself attending a wedding, and the moment when an officiant tries to say something romantic and sincere, everyone, and I mean everyone in the room, bursts into laughter. Like the attendees, I had never seen anything like it either.
Time is one of the most precious moments in your life, when your two lives merge together as one. And the time that I'm sure you'll be looking back on someday and saying to each other, "Do you remember when we were married in Las Vegas, Nevada? We had a wonderful time with our families."
It's entirely possible my viewing of this wedding video is colored by hindsight, knowing what would come to pass. But watching it, seeing where people laughed, to me, it was more than just a funny Vegas wedding, because all the laughter comes across less like funny, everyone is drinking, and more like the wedding itself is the joke. And that's the true elephant in the room that no one will say, but the laughter says for them. While the priest is trying to get through the ceremony, Mark, Marilyn's ex-husband, who's filming, keeps panning the camera back to Hank Scheinberg, who is desperately trying to keep it together, and causes him to laugh again.
And, I start laughing, and then I can't stop, and Rick looks at me laughing like that, and then he catches the laughter thing, and he can't stop, which sets me off even more.
Rick Peltz remembers this as well.
for some reason, Hank and I looked at each other. We couldn't stop laughing. It was just nonstop laughing. And it wasn't that anything was funny. It was just like an unbelievable series of events that was going on. But Hank and I, we had tears coming down our eyes. And we had never experienced anything like it. It was uncontrollable laughing. And we kept it under tow. And, they did their ceremony and they were pronounced man and wife.
Eventually, the priest reaches the I do's.
And you take Lynn to be your lawfully wedded wife? Good. And then do you take Daniel to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then I ask that together and to each other at the same time, if you will, repeat these lines after me. For better or for worse? For better or for worse? Together and to each other at the same time. At the same time.
If you had trouble making that out, the priest says, for better or for worse. Lynn repeats after him, and he instructs the couple together and to each other at the same time. And she just repeats after him at the same time. Everyone laughs, and the priest has to sort of stop and get them both organized, so Dan and Lynn will say their vows together.
To have and to hold, to love and to cherish, to honor and to respect, from this day forward. And forever.
The priest says, from this day forward. Lynn repeats after him verbatim, but Dan adds, from this day forward and forever.
And Daniel, you have a ring for Lynn, if you'll place it on her ring finger this time.
There's laughter as Dan takes a second to get the ring out. Someone in the back mumbles, somebody's got it.
Once again, now together to each other, if you will repeat these final vows. With this ring, I marry you. With this ring, I marry you. I join my life with yours. All that I am, and all that I have, and all of my love, I truly and freely give to you. Who have joined their lives together to begin their walk in their road of life. We pray that the home that they establish will be a home of peace, a fortress and a refuge from the storms of life, that they will propose in their hearts and to each other, that nothing will ever separate them from your love for them or their love for each other.
The video abruptly cuts before the wedding ceremony is over. There are some brief snippets of afterwards in the limo, and then the video moves to a post-wedding dinner.
If you want to see a picture, she's really pretty. She takes out her business card out of this wallet. Here, picture card. Cute. Aww, that's so sweet.
If you had trouble hearing that, someone talks about how Dan would take out a photo of Lynn and show her off proudly. Lynn reacts visibly, and it's a truly sweet moment between them, caught amidst the madness of this wedding. Dan leans into Lynn's neck and puts his arm around her. She rubs her fingers on his chin in an affectionate way, and it's a window into this relationship. There was love here in some fashion. It wasn't an accident these two wound up getting married. It didn't come out of nowhere. It was a remarkable grace note to find, and maybe a telling one, given what would happen in the years to come. Moving forward from this nice moment, Lynn would wind up spending her wedding night alone, locked out of her bridal suite, trying to explain to the hotel staff that the man inside that room was her husband. That's next time. My Best Friend's Killer is a production of Voyage Media. The series is produced by Nat Mundell, Robert Midas, Dan Benamore, and Caitlin Brown. Executive produced by Marilyn Hotz. Reported, written, and lead produced by Dan Benamore. Edited, sound designed, and mixed by Nick Misiti. Original music by Derlis Gonzalez. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you're listening, and subscribe now for future episodes.